License Review Committee is called to order. 5:38 p.m. Jim, you want to read your part?
Yeah. Welcome to our hybrid meeting. Participants in the room, please do not join the meeting in Zoom. Virtual participants, if you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members attending virtually, if you are able, please activate your video for purposes of quorum and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Excuse me. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Members of the committee, when you wish to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote, please raise your hand or raise your hand virtually in Zoom. Those in the room will have their microphones turned on, or they're already on, when they're recognized to speak. Those attending virtually can unmute themselves when recognized. When you are finishing, all should mute themselves. Members of the public who have registered to speak, those appearing virtually, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. If you are here in person, we are called to speak. Please sit up at the table, and there's a microphone right there. For all registrants, the clerk will tell you when your time is up. After all public speakers, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Thanks. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This meeting is governed by Robert's Rules of Order. If you'd like to speak to the committee, please fill out a registration form and submit it to the clerk. Everyone will have to gain recognition from the chair before you speak. Any comments made to the committee will be limited to 3 minutes, not including the question period. Jim, can you call the roll?
Yep. And I'll just mention that Wester and Farley are notified absences. Alder Miadzi?
Present.
Alder Miadzi is present. Alder Revere?
Here.
Alder Revere is present. Mr. Baruchuk?
Here.
Mr. Baruchuk is here. Alder Knox?
I'm here.
Alder Knox is here. Ms. Carter? Ms. Carter is here. I saw her say present. Chair, we do have quorum.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from September 18th?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alder Revere, seconded by Ms. Carter. Any objection? Seeing none. Is there any registrants for general public comment?
Let me check. There are not.
Oh, okay. Presentation of the consent agenda. Jim Center on the consent agenda. Do you want to go through that, or should I ask for a motion?
I can read a brief version of it.
Okay.
All right, so the proposed consent agenda for ALRC meeting October 16th, 2024. Recommended council to grant change of agent items 2 and 4 and entity reorganization items 6 and 7, change of premise item 8, and recommended council to place on file without prejudice public hearing new license item number 9. And I will say for 9, if you recall last month it was on the agenda. The initial applicant is under the age of 21. You need to be at least 21 to be a member of, to hold an alcohol license. They initially talked about finding someone who was of age to take over for that application, but they have since decided they're going to wait until next year when the current applicant will be of age. So this item is going to be placed on file without prejudice to withdraw.
Okay, is there any additions or I should say, are there any changes to the consent agenda by any member of the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve it with the recommendations?
Move approval with the recommendations.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Carter, second by Alder Verveer, to approve the consent agenda with the recommendations. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved with the recommendations. So, Jim, do you want to go through it one more time?
Sure. So the past consent agenda for ALRC meeting October 16th, 2024 is recommended council to grant item 2, change of agent for Woodman's Food Market, Inc. Item 4, change of agent for Speedway LLC. Item 6, entity reorganization for Metcalf Foods West, Inc. This is for 7455 Mineral Point Road. Item 7, entity reorganization for Metcalf Foods West, Inc. at 726 Midvale Boulevard. Item 8, change of premises for Mega Marts LLC. And recommended council to place on file without prejudice. Number 9, public hearing, new license, El Rancho Breakfast and Tacos LLC at 824 East Johnson Street. So if you're here for any of those items, you're welcome to stay, but your item has been dealt with.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Verbeek. Let's move on to item number 3, change of agents, Bowl, New England, doing business as Spare Time. Is there any registrant for this item?
Yes, Jessica Miller is registered for this item, and I believe Captain Kamaski has information related to the background check for this.
Okay, let's start with Captain Kamaski, and then we'll hear from Jessica Miller. Can you tell us why this was flagged, Captain Kamaski?
Sure. In Ms. Miller's background check, there were a couple of different felonies. These were quite old. The first was from a date of 3/7/2004 with a conviction in that same year for 2 felonies for misappropriate ID, info obtained money with a uttering of a forgery. The second case was also from later in 2004. I think these were all kind of part of one. Actually, no, I misspoke. The second set of felonies was from Monona PD. It was also for in 2004 with a conviction of 2 felonies in 2005 for identity theft, obtained money or credit theft, business setting for an amount between $2,500 and $5,000. There was also a misdemeanor conviction in there in 2004 as well for theft of movable property less than $2,500. Those were misdemeanors. And then in 2016, there was a misdemeanor conviction out of Columbia County for possession of THC. It appears, I don't have the reports for the Monona PD cases. The other cases were Madison Police Department cases, and it appears they were cases that involved Ms. Miller either being a part of or using stolen credit cards to obtain goods.
Thank you, Captain Kamaski. Are there any questions for the captain? Seeing none, we'll go to Jessica Miller. You can introduce yourself and share with the committee whatever you'd like to share.
Sure. My name is Jessica Miller. Captain is correct. Those offenses were almost 20 years ago. At a time in my life, I was a party to a crime of the person who originally had committed the crimes. Since then, have really worked hard to rehabilitating myself to become a better citizen in the Dane County community. have really superseded myself goals and expectation wise through my career, pushing to prove that I am no longer or what even wanting to desire to be any type of criminal activity in those senses. So I unfortunately do take the hit because it was, 20 some years ago, every time that my background check does get ran, that does come about. But I do definitely can contest that I have made significant life strides. Volunteer hours as a volunteer cheerleading coach for many years. I have been running restaurants for the last 10 years, in and out of, being able bartender. So being very familiar with the laws and regulations of liquor licensing and things like that. So this was a new step for me to be continuing on the correct path and trying to obtain that liquor license for Spare Time New England, in which I am the general manager of.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, is Alder Knox?
Yeah, I was just wondering, other than the request for a license, is that the only document that we have to review?
There's the one-page application form.
Yes,
But
yes.
That's it.
Okay. I guess I do have a question for the applicant. Can you kind of give us a little more detail on your background in terms of working in facilities with alcohol and things like that? Can you give us a little background on your experience? Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Probably it started really into the liquor part of things. I started working for a small family restaurant, running that for 6 years, called Fitz's on the Lake out in Oakey, Wisconsin. Just really dove in there, got my liquor license there. From that point in the career, worked 6 years side by side with the owner. From there, I then proceeded to move on to the the Kalahari in the Dells, was the assistant food and beverage director there, as well as the general manager for the Double Cut Fine Dining restaurant. Prior to working at the Kalahari, I did 2 years running the State House in the downtown Madison, Edgewater. So also have been working towards becoming a certified sommelier for a wine certification. Definitely did the TAPS program. I have done the 360 training. I do hold the Dane County license. I've never had any issues personally with alcohol or anybody in my family with alcohol abuse. So I've never really had to have I've never been an abuser of alcohol, let's just say. So I feel that between all of the years of experience, between IDing people, understanding how much people should be consuming when a high risk situation is, becoming a situation, how to handle that and default that without any escalation are obviously the keys, especially when alcohol is involved. So throughout my years of just managing in those high end settings, it has definitely shaped me into knowing more on the liquor standpoint.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Ms. Carter?
Yes. Jessica, can you tell me, I know that the record was 20 years ago, but at what point did you decide to redirect your life?
Unfortunately, immediately, I hate to say this, but I was made an example of and received almost a 3.5-year prison sentence behind those charges. So for identity theft, essentially what it was My, at the time, partner, who was my abuser as well, utilized credit cards, and I was in knowledge of, and I did own up to providing them by getting them from where I worked. So because I allowed him to use them and didn't turn him in, I became the party of the crime. Because of those crimes, Judge James Martin had sentenced me to some in time in the Dane County Jail with work release, and then more charges came about, which then sentenced me to go within the Wisconsin prison system.
Mhm.
So the minute I got into the prison system, I took every class, course, counseling, redirection, even an alcohol and drug counseling course, just to make myself better. I was granted as well, because of my certifications and trying to rehabilitation. I was granted early release. Back then, obviously, we could file a motion with the court after 75% of your time had been served to petition the court for early release, based on where you were at within your incarceration and how your behavior stemmed. So I was granted from there, and then from that moment, I became a mom, and just basically the minute I got out, just have been pushing to do better. And let me tell you, it's been a struggle, because with the background, unfortunately, you get a lot more no's than you get yeses when it comes to careers. So I'm actually pretty proud of myself for how far I have come by proving my worthiness as a worker versus what the record has said for me in the past.
Well, you are definitely inspiration. So thank you for that synopsis.
Any further questions for the applicant? Seeing none, do I have a motion? Alder Verveer.
Thank you. I move to grant the change of agent notwithstanding the felony convictions.
Alder Miadzi. Is that a second? There was a motion to grant, notwithstanding the felony convictions, by Alder Verveer, seconded by Alder Miadzi. Is there any objection to this motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you very much.
Can move on to item number 5, entity reorganization for Red Rooster, 2513 Seaforth Road.
Tim Payne is registered and in Zoom.
Mr. Payne, you can introduce yourself and tell us about your reorganization.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Great. All right. Yes. So I started the Red Rooster with Jesse Steinberg. We a third party, a friend of ours, bought the property, Dan Resnick, and he decided to be a silent partner. So he's not part of the Red Rooster business. He has his own business, and he is our landlord. Anyway, Jesse and I purchased the property with Dan in 2021 and did remodeling and opened then in 2022. About a few months ago, Jesse decided to split off and open a different place, which is in Sauk City, actually. And so I bought out his share, and I am now 100% owner of the Red Rooster business. Back when we got the alcohol license, we basically flipped a coin for who was the agent of record, and Jesse is the one who originally had his name on the license, and now since he's gone, I am requesting to be put on.
Okay, thank you. And a question for Mr. Verbeek. This type of thing would normally be on the consent agenda?
Yeah, the reason it was not on the consent agenda is because we had 3 members and it went down to 1, which is more than a 50% change of ownership. So that's why it was not on the consent agenda.
Okay.
But he is an existing owner.
Are there questions for the applicant from the committee? Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome, Tim. Could you, you went through the history of the corporation, which was very helpful. I didn't hear you refer to Paul. Can you describe Paul's role and confirm that he's no longer part
sure.
of the,
Yeah.
the membership of the LLC?
Yeah, Paul. So Paul Schwer, who owns Paul's Pilmini downtown,
Right.
is a friend of ours, and he helped us get the business off the ground. And for his help, we gave him a very small percentage ownership. And then when I reorganized, it was just easier, honestly, to just go 100% ownership as opposed to leaving Paul his minute share that he had, and he was fine with just sort of waving that off. And honestly, as it does make a lot of paperwork a lot easier when there's just one owner on the LLC.
Thank you. So out of curiosity, is Paul still involved in Red Rooster at all? Or is he?
He really was never involved, as he just had kind of a consulting role
in the food operation?
Right. Yeah. So it just, I think originally when we first incorporated, Paul was hoping to be more involved, and then as time went on and as we opened, he was too involved with his other businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad you were finally able to attend one of our meetings. We've had you on the agenda for many months now.
Yeah, I attended one, and I thought I was part of the consent agenda.
Oh, I see.
Really, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry for the confusion that night.
That's right.
Okay, thanks again. Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions for the applicant? Any motion?
I'll move to grant the entity reorganization.
Motion by Alder Verveer. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Alder Verveer, seconded by Alder Knox to approve the entity reorganization. Is there any objection to this motion? Seeing none, the entity reorganization motion is approved.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Next up, we have public hearing, new license for Dream Lanes, 13 Atlas Court. Is someone registered for this item?
Yep, we have 2 registrants. We have Robin Goldberg, who is in support, available to answer questions. She is with Dream Lanes. And then we have Dianese Goldborn, who is neither in support nor opposition, not wishing to speak. So I think Robin is in. Physically here. Oh, physically, okay. Robin, yeah.
Come on up. Tell us about your business and
Well, I've been the owner-operator of Dream Lanes for 41 years. I'm getting close to the end of my career in the bowling business. I have some potential buyers that might purchase the business. As part of their due diligence, they need to make sure that they can obtain a liquor license. So that's why we're here today. Nothing's been signed yet, but we just need to go through the motions to make sure that they can obtain a liquor license. I would continue to be the agent as well as their general manager. It just sort of gives me an exit strategy down the line when I do want to leave the bowling business, that I am no longer have anything to sell.
okay. Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome. congratulations on your retirement someday.
Yeah.
Obviously not immediate, it sounds like. And I presume that a representative of the buyer is with us virtually tonight? Or there's someone else in the meeting representing the buyer? Or are you
I'm actually here representing them as
representing
well.
them? Okay, so no one from Georgia is on Zoom or anything?
Correct.
Okay, so I'll ask you then the question I was going to ask them as well. But is it your understanding that they would, assuming the purchase goes through, of course, and this license is granted and issued, that anything would change? Would your patrons currently notice a change, do you think, in operation down the road?
We joke about it. Anytime somebody says nothing is going to change, translation, things are going to change. Will I continue in the role as general manager for the next 5 years? Probably not. 2 or 3 years is very realistic. So yeah, I don't see anything changing. They're very happy with my business model and my bottom line. So being absentee owners, I don't think that they're going to make any wholesale changes. And I guess I'm the glue that's going to have a little continuity here moving forward, but I don't see anything significant changing in the business model.
Very good. So in terms of the food and beverage offerings, in terms of the building, no remodel plan, they don't
No,
require anything?
we've
as
kept
part
very
of the-
current over the years. We put in new lanes 5 years ago, new scoring a year ago, a new parking lot a year ago. So, I've kept the building and the business very, very viable. I wasn't going to sell something that was run down, so we keep reinvesting. And these folks have been sort of hand-chosen by me to carry on that Dream Lanes tradition.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with all of your succession plan, et cetera. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Attorney McReynolds?
Thank you, Chair. I did want to ask for some clarification. I know that there was an email from the clerk about this earlier, but just so that the committee can hear, could you clarify a little bit about the percentages that were included on the application? It says 99% alcohol, 0% food, and 1% other. Normally we see other as being the rest of the business, so bowling, tickets. And then if you could also clarify the food situation, because it seems like there was snacks from a vending machine are mentioned here, but then there's also a full menu attached. So could you explain that, please?
Absolutely. So it was my understanding the percentages were the food versus beverages. We lease out our food service to a separate company. It's a Pizza Pit restaurant that supplies all the food service to my customers in the building. I do have ownership in that business as well with the business partner. So it's very possible we filled out the form wrong. Beverage sales, overall sales are about 37% of our total sales when we include bowling. It was my understanding that we were comparing beverage sales and food sales. And in that particular case, since the food service is leased out, that are very correct numbers. That 99% of our sales are beverages, 1% comes from vending machines. However, if I filled that out incorrectly, about 37% of our total sales, with bowling included, would be beverage sales.
All right, thanks for that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? Alder Verveer?
Yeah, thank you. Just following up on Attorney McReynolds' point, Jim, according to the attorney, did she say, she referred that there's an email that you have this documented?
Let me see if they clarified. I did send an email yesterday, I think, asking them to clarify that, but let me see what the
And you responded, Robin, to the email? or-
Potential buyers
Oh,
respond.
in George, from Georgia or wherever, okay. I was just thinking, Jim, that we could include that in Legistar, please, at your convenience, and then if you could also at your convenience update the Legistar
Yep.
item so that it's correct for the Common Council agenda.
Yeah, Marcella Brust responded, said, thank you for pointing this out. We are categorizing the sale percentages, answering question 25 with food and beverage revenue group. In this group, 99% of the food and beverage revenue is generated from alcohol sales. Food revenue is minimal as food is only provided by the on-site franchise. Alcohol sales account for 37% of the total overall revenue. Hope this helps. Please let me know if I can answer any questions. So I can put that in the record.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for reading that, too.
Any further
No,
questions?
thank you.
I just like to better understand. So you already have a Class B combo license at this location.
Correct.
So are you, is our task today to consider whether to issue another,
It's a new LLC that's taking.
a new license to a new LLC, but you're still, but the sale hasn't gone through yet?
Correct. Now, the way it was explained to me, and hopefully this is correct, that even though a license to the new entity could be granted, it's not issued until I would surrender my license. And I wouldn't surrender my license until the actual sale went through.
Okay.
And it sounds like there's 180 days that after a license is granted, there's 180 days that it can be issued.
Okay.
Or you could come back, if I could rudely interject, you could come back, as the chair probably was going to explain, come back and ask for an extension from our body as well. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for the committee or a motion? I see no more questions. Any comments or points of discussion from members of the committee? Alder Knox?
Yeah, so just want to be clear. So Robin is the agent, correct? And Gary is the owner. Or am I missing this?
That's what I think. I think Robin's or Gary's a prospective owner. You want to answer that?
Correct. So currently, myself, Robin Goldberg, I am the owner of the business as well as the current agent. On the new license
So-
application, Gary and Marcella Brusts would become the new owners, and I would still continue to be their agent. So I'm the agent on the existing license. I would be the agent on the new license as well.
But you're also the current owner. of the
Correct, yes.
business. So I guess I guess until this other person is the owner, why are they on the license? I guess that's my question. Am I missing something here or what?
So Robin owns the current license. The folks who own Dream Lanes LLC are taking over the license, but keeping Robin on as a liquor beer agent. So it's a new license for this LLC to replace the one that's currently there.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Okay. Does that answer it, Alder Knox?
Not really, but that's fine.
Well, feel free. I don't think we're crunched for time today, but
No,
No, I'm satisfied with it.
quite the
That's
short
fine.
agenda tonight.
okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments, questions from the committee? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to grant.
Move to grant by Alder Verveer. I'll second it if no one else wants to. Moved by Alder Revere, seconded
I'll
by,
second.
okay. Seconded by Carter. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, the motion passes. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Next up, we have summary of recent calls for service, report of Madison Police Department. Captain Kamaski.
Sure. So I did get all of the information about the Chasers bar check that we had talked about last time, and I didn't have the specifics, as well as the latest bar check that yielded a large amount of citations. So just to go back to the Chasers one that we talked about at the last meeting, this was on September 5th. Our central CPT officers did a bar check at Chasers at about 10:20 p.m. They ended up issuing 157 citations issued to 142 individuals. So there was a couple of individuals that received multiple citations, and I believe that those were for people who had repeat offenses. They seized the number from my CPT is slightly less than 142. He didn't have the exact number. I asked them how IDs were checked at this establishment. And they said that the IDs are checked at the door by the bouncers and security, and then they're also run through Patron Scan, which is one of those automatic check systems, ID scanning systems. In their opinion, that this system is generally not very good at catching fake IDs and is more useful for investigating incidents on the back end, like if we're trying to find an identification of somebody that came into the bar using Patron Scan. So this one, once the reports are done, will be also referred up to the city attorney's office for the city attorney to take a look at with any potential ramifications for Chasers. The second one just was more recent. This was a bar check at the Scani Bar at 1421 Regent Street. This took place on October 4th, about 11:40 p.m. So this one I don't have final numbers on yet. They're still in issuing citations. Their best guess is it should be around 132 citations for underage out of approximately 160 that were in the bar. 160 is their max capacity, and they were at capacity that night. They also seized around 130 fake IDs. So ID check at this establishment, it says, are checked at the door by bouncers and security. And they also now use a ID scanning system called TokenWorks. Our CPT officers don't have a lot of experience with the efficiency or the effectiveness of that system. But he said that one of our officers, after reviewing the system, said that it's not catching most of the fake IDs. Of note there, they noted that many of the fake IDs that were seized were not of good quality and easily should have been caught by bouncers doing a cursory check. So their belief is also that this system was introduced after a previous check last year, where they had underage individuals and were recommended to get some type of a scanning system. So this one is still being written up and also will be referred to the city attorney's office. And I believe that the Scani Bar has had violations of this nature in the past.
Captain Kamaski, thank you for that report. Are you aware of any bar checks that don't result in the vast majority of the patrons being underage? So I think to me it sounds like when very, very, very large percentage of your total legal capacity consists of people who aren't allowed to be there. That raises a huge red flag to me. I would assume that other bars get checked and they have none, or maybe just a token handful of underagers. What might explain? Am I correct about that assumption? And what might explain that difference?
Sure. Yes, you absolutely are correct that bars that result in this many underage are outliers, or bar checks that result in this many are very much outliers. So our central CPT does bar checks routinely throughout the year. And tries to, it really has a schedule actually where they're going to all of the establishments in the central district or very nearby. The one on Regent Street is actually just across the street in the Midtown district, but since it's had issues in the past and it draws a large amount of student and sometimes underage patrons, that's why they also include this one in their checks. So yes, there are bars with much larger capacities that are very good at checking IDs and doing their due diligence in doing that and making sure that there aren't this type of problem happening. I think there's a number of explanations for it. Whether or not it's staff that they are hiring and they're not training well, or staff that they are hiring and training, but are maybe not the best choice of employees because they're letting their friends in or they're known to be letting underage people in. I think is really probably where we're getting most of these is where people just aren't checking and they're not doing their due diligence and checking the ID and next to the person that they're actually looking at. They're giving very little, if not even a cursory look. So I think a lot of it is just not careful practice by those individuals that are tasked with that at those establishments.
Thank you. Alder Miadzi.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, you took my question. Isn't the body supposed to go before the chair? No, it's okay. I'm glad that you're able to articulate that probably even better than I have. But I just want to commend the police for all the work that you guys do. If it wasn't for you guys checking on these bars, that it could be a lot worse for a lot of students and EW students. So just to piggyback on that too, what do you think that could be done differently? Is there a system out there that you guys probably say should be the number one thing that people should be used that are more efficient? Just to piggyback off what the chair said.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do, like I've said before, we do like the safer bars training. So our officers that are trained in that, they also do know about several of the systems that seem to have better efficiency than others and things that we've seen put in practice. So I think they definitely do make those recommendations. So, and the Safer Bar program that we run on an annual basis, or basically anytime, we'll put it into effect if somebody says, "Hey, I'm hiring a whole slew of new staff. I know it's not the annual time for this training, but can you come and put one on for my bar specifically?" We absolutely do that. So we make all of those resources available, and we make it available to them to have information and training on how to be checking and what things to be looking for on those IDs and best practices. It's one of those things that we can't force upon a bar. A large portion of the State Street bars do take part in it. And I'm not exactly sure if the SCANI has or not in the past, but it is not something that we can force them to do. It's just a recommendation from us.
All right. I guess lastly, is there a way that once this, a violation that has happened so far, is there a way to or ordinance that we could probably implement to say this is pathway forward? This is something that you guys have to do in order to remedy some of these problems?
I would defer, just because I'm not sure. I would defer to Attorney McReynolds on this about what kind of what the powers are of the city attorney's office once these complaints are drafted, and kind of what the possibilities are.
Yeah, that's really more of Attorney Jen Zelevi's role as the prosecutor, I think. So I'm going to call her in if she's available right now. If she's not, she is planning to be. There you are. Hi, Jen. Thank you.
Hello, I'm here.
Did you hear the question?
I did. So I I haven't met with several of the other bars who have complaints filed against them. Haven't met with them yet because their case is still hasn't been set for the initial appearance yet. But what I can tell you is that most of these bars do use some type of scanning. They do come to the tavern safety trainings. They take the recommendations that are made there. And several years ago, Patron Scan was the device that was most reliable in detecting fake IDs. Over the years, the fake IDs have become better and better, and Patron Scan now doesn't capture nearly as many fake IDs as it used to. In fact, you can see on the Patron Scan report, it will scan the ID. It has the name of the individual submitting it, their birth date, and then there's another code that would alert if it was detecting it as a false ID. So the problem is getting really difficult because the scanners can't keep up with the technology with the fake IDs. And we have, I'm pretty sure all the bars downtown now have scanners that they use. And some of them have gone to asking for a second form of ID. Back in the day when kids got fake IDs, they used to get a fake ID in somebody else's name. So asking for that second form of ID was a helpful way to weed them out. Now the IDs they get in their own name with their own address and all their own personal information. So it's a lot harder to have a secondary method of IDing them that is successful because of how good the fake IDs are and the fact that they use their own name and their information other than that they've fudged the year of their date of birth.
And with if the committee's okay with it, I'll consider item 11 and 12, this to be item 11 and 12 at the same time. Is there any, but before we move into prosecution, is there any other report of the Madison Police Department that's a different topic than this?
No, I don't have anything
Okay.
else related to any of the establishments at this time.
Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Captain Kamaski, for being here as always. I did have a question, just as we've been talking more than we normally do about tavern safety checks. Looking at the weekly reports that we all receive and are emailed to us, automatically by your department each Monday morning, and then are, of course, included each month as an agenda item here, the attachment. So I'm just pulling up the most recent one. Is there a kind of a rhyme or reason or key that you know of, at least in the central district that you command, where your officers, the central CPT officers, would have dispatch use the same code in the CAD system? So for example, I'm not to pick on them in any way, shape, or form, but it's the first example I could find on the most recent report. And as I think we all know, these are in alphabetical order by licensed establishment. But Liquid, so the call obviously came in for Liquid in the last week for assist EMS fire. And then apparently, I presume they would have issued a citation to someone, because then a few minutes later, it's in the CAD system as liquor law violation. And then there's a third, a few more minutes later, that's in the system here for stratified policing. And when you look at some of the other campus establishments, again, in this report from the most recent report we have here that's in our packets tonight, you see likewise that stratified policing is used not only downtown, but in all the police districts, it appears. And I don't know if everyone on the committee knows what that is and how it's a major initiative from Chief Barnes. But anyway, if you could just explain, do you know, so like when you were explaining earlier that the Central CPT have a schedule, et cetera, would those, do you believe, more often than not be dispatched to this building here where some of us are sitting as a liquor law bar check? As for example, when you go to Scani, it's coded liquor law bar check. Or could some of these that are stratified policing also be liquor law bar checks? Do you see what I'm asking? Or could a lot of these stratified policings just be out on the sidewalk in front of a licensed premise, and they're just, that's the, you know, the, what your officers gave to dispatch is?
Yeah, I think it could be a mix of both. Typically, if it's CPT, they will pull a specific number for a liquor law or bar check, and call it that. Because like all of these numbers are being counted, if there's like another officer, like let's say, they're doing a liquor law bar check, but there's still like a large number of patrons outside. And so there's just officers there like providing high visibility or, in that area for the stratified policing. Some other officer might actually just pull the stratified number as well. So it's really difficult for me to tell kind of which number goes to which, but typically CPT will typically pull it as like a liquor law or a bar check or a check property and not just a stratified.
Okay. As a favor, if you could maybe confirm with your sergeant and your team that maybe in the future, just for our committee's benefit, that they just make sure that they're being as uniform as possible and what they convey to dispatch, just so as our committee might be more interested in this topic than we have perhaps sometimes in the past. We could review these weekly calls for service and just out of curiosity, see how many, tavern safety checks they're able to do in a given week. And we know that those are actually tavern safety checks as opposed to, as I say, stratified. Why don't you can I put you on the spot and have you explain stratified policing for everyone? So, and why there are so many stratified policing notes here in the calls for service for any given week?
Sure. So it's basically stratified policing in a very short nutshell is an initiative that was initiated by Chief Barnes. It's a methodology where you're using data-driven, you're using data to see like where your priority areas are. And so each district has a defined priority area, which we've had the same area for 2023 and 2024. Downtown is the area in our entertainment zone, so the State Street area, and just a few blocks each side of that, and then kind of up to the square. So each district has that priority area that was picked by data analysts as to areas of focus. And then we also have different categories of crime and different significant incidents and all those kind of things that we look at and do measures of in the priority areas as well as throughout the districts. But when somebody pulls a stratified policing number, that means that they are doing something in that largely priority area. So either something like a high visibility patrol, Cobra patrol, foot patrol, community engagement, those kind of things. And that number then, that case number, that tag, then can be used by the analysts for data purposes. And the whole system of stratified is just that every rank in the police department has a role to play. So the things that the patrol has, patrol has the day-to-day operations. You have sergeants who take on smaller problem initiatives, and then as the problem gets larger and maybe like a district-wide issue or something like that, then it goes up to the lieutenants and the captains to be the person that is the point person for the issue or the problem. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you very much for explaining that. So just to confirm, if a licensed establishment, say on State Street, is here with the call for service and it's coded as stratified policing, that in no way, shape, or form means that it was a tavern safety check, correct? It could be inside the establishment, it could be out on the sidewalk
Yep.
in front of,
Yep. It
okay,
could
yeah.
just, yep. And it could just be that there's not even really, there's no issue going on at all. It's just that extra patrol or spending that extra time trying to deter something from going on. And we'll see those a lot pulled, especially with our DSI officers who are out just monitoring crowds. But the crowd ends up not being any type of an issue, or there's no type of an issue at the establishment.
Right, so that there's, in fact, even calling it a call for service is probably not the best term. 'Cause
Right.
they're being so proactive, but for data purposes, your officers have been instructed to have that recorded through dispatch,
Yes,
is that right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. They have to they have to pull that case number and record the call.
Okay, thank you very much.
Record that time. Yep, sure.
I got it. Yeah, thanks very much, Captain. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Are there, Attorney Zilovy, do you have any further comments for prosecution's update?
I do have a prosecution's update. I have one against the Scotty Bar that was 4 different incidents, and we're currently negotiating the settlement on that. It was 4 different complaints, a total of 91 counts of allowing underage on the premises, no other counts other than allowing underage on the premises. And then also in process, and the ones I'm about to read off have been filed with the court, and I believe they have initial appearance dates scheduled, but I don't know off the top of my head when, but I would imagine sometime in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Church Key had 129 counts of underage on the premises. The Plaza had 74 counts of underage on the premises. The Ivory Room had 21 counts of underage on the premises. Mom's Bar had 14 counts of underage on the premises. And then Lucky's Bar has 4 different complaints. 2 of them relate to the same date. And those involve 23 underage on the premises and 1 intoxicated person on the premises. And then another complaint, there were 46 underage on the premises and 1 intoxicated person on the premises. And then the final complaint was for 128 underage on the licensed premises. So those are all in process. And then I have 4 others, 3 others that I have not yet read the reports. And that is 1 for Mondays, 1 for Vintage, and 1 for Chasers. And I don't know how many underage were involved in each of those. And then also on deck is 7 Iron Social.
7.
So those will eventually be coming down the pike, I assume. Like I said, I haven't read the reports for Mondays, Vintage, and Chasers. So I can't say for sure about prosecution until I actually read those reports.
Do you know anything about the source of the fake IDs? How are they so good?
A lot of them, I believe, come from China. And I mean, I regularly go through the fakes that they confiscate to see if I can tell if they're fake. And they are really, really good. On a lot of the states, they, in addition to the logo of the state, there are there'll be a design that you can just barely see, but if you shine a light under the ID, the design is illuminated. That's another thing that they put on the IDs to make them more difficult to counterfeit, but they've figured out how to counterfeit that aspect of it as well. They're incredibly difficult to tell that they're fake. I mean, obviously there's some that are easier than others. Like if the laminate is peeling, that's a pretty obvious sign that it's a fake, but there are many IDs where it's really difficult to tell that it's a fake ID.
Alder Miadzi.
Hello. Yeah, just a quick question. I don't know what the process is of confiscating fake IDs or just seeing if people are being let in by the person that's supposed to be checking the IDs. But I'm just curious, does the city attorney's office look at the video of during the investigation, or is that MPD that looks at video to see if bartenders might be letting people in without properly checking an ID, or when you guys come up with that number of people that have been fake IDs that have been confiscated or checked on?
Well, I can tell you that today I met with Scani Bar and I did look at their video from the most recent incident, and their bouncer has the scanner. The bouncer actually takes a picture of the ID that's presented, and then you could see him look at the ID and look at the person and feel the ID. I saw him turn a couple people away. I don't know that video is available in every one of these cases, or that places have the video trained on staff at the door, but in the course of the inspection, when the officers get the fake IDs from the kids, a lot of times they initially claim that they didn't submit a fake ID because they give their real ID to the officer, and then the officer presses them further for a fake ID and tells them they will have less of a penalty if they hand over their fake IDs, and generally they end up getting fake IDs with that process.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alder Verveer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Attorney Zillavi, for being with us and for preparing the report for us. I have a couple of questions, and I wanted to just kind of start with chronology to make sure I understand perhaps where we've been. And you probably heard from your colleague, Attorney McReynolds, that I asked that you give us this update tonight. So thanks for being here. And I asked in part because, well, two reasons. One, MPD has been more prolific, it seems, at least anecdotally, in not so much the Chevron safety checks, but issuing larger than I've noticed, again, anecdotally, volume of UAL citations, and two, then reporting them to the community, the media, through incident reports. So it seems like just anecdotally there are more of them. And then when you gave your rundown, that you confirmed that there's actually a lot on your desk, on your plate, that you've been dealing with over the last year, probably plus. So going back just chronologically, is my memory correct that the last time a licensed establishment appeared before us for a prosecution was City Bar for their tavern safety check underage violations from
I think so.
2022, and then they were in municipal court the next year, and before us for the Demerit Point
Correct.
issue. Okay, so that was last year in 23, and so there's been nothing since 23 before us with City Bar. And so are all the various Scani Bar complaints, the long-form complaints that you filed in municipal court, are all those from the year 2023 that you were negotiating today? Obviously.
No. 2022 and 2023.
Okay. So nothing from this year until the most recent incident that the
Correct.
captain spoke to? Okay, thank you.
Well, The one was basically January 24. It was New Year's
Oh,
Eve,
okay.
2023.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I think that might have been reported to the media as
Yep.
well. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. And then all the other list, and I won't just read the whole list, but for example, you started with Church Key, the Plaza, Ivory Room, Mom's Bar. What years were those?
Those are all 23, but Lucky's also has one from April of 2024.
Okay. So these were all 23s, okay. And you said none of these establishments would have been served the long form complaints yet? Or you said there weren't an IA date for any of them yet? Or is that right? Or
Well, I know at least I saw Church Key is on my calendar. And they were all processed around the same time. So I believe they have been served.
so
And they're likely set for an IA date as well.
okay. Okay, so your belief is that everyone, at least everyone that you've drafted the long form complaint for, those have all been served?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
And I would right now look on MuniCourt to tell you, but I have a loaner computer because my real computer is broken, and on this loaner I don't have access to municipal court or anything. So sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Maybe Attorney McReynolds does. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of more joking to put her on the spot because we have such a short meeting tonight. I'm filibustering perhaps in a way, just kidding. So, and then just to confirm, all of the long form complaints that you've drafted and that you believe have all been served now, every single one of those were counts relating to permitting an underage person on licensed premise, would you say, except you did mention one was an intoxicated person for Lucky's?
There were two intoxicated persons for Lucky's.
Okay. Or are there like 100% of the offenses, the counts are all permit underage person on licensed premise for all these other establishments that you listed for us?
Yes, except let me double check on the 4 for Scani.
Thank you.
Yes, all the other ones are for underage on premise.
Thank you. Do you recall as you were reviewing all these reports, would any of them also have any that were over capacity out of curiosity? And if you did run across in reports that the central CPT officers found that these establishments were over capacity, would you, in the normal course of your work, likely charge for
Yes,
being over capacity?
I would.
Yeah.
And none of these mentioned that they were over capacity.
Okay, thank you. And then all the ones, and I fully realize that, as the captain said, that these reports are not considered the highest priority in terms of being, prepared and typed by I still call them stenos, but by the police, the PRTs. But all the ones that you do have complete reports for, that you have yet to thoroughly review, do you believe that almost all of those are also would likely be permitting underage person on licensed premise? Or do you think there might be some other violations of liquor law in any of those that I, again, acknowledge that you haven't had a chance to thoroughly review?
In the communications regarding those complaints, nothing has been brought to my attention that is different than the underage violations.
Okay.
So I doubt it, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. But, so for example, one of the new ones I think the one you listed at the end was 7 Iron Social. That's all underage person, for example, and they all are.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So do you concur that it seems like you're receiving more reports the last couple years than we've received in prior years? Or Do you, I guess what I'm
Well-
getting at is, do you think it's kind of this, we already had the colloquy about the quality of the fakes, but do you think it's in part because Central CPT has been more active in terms of issuing so many citations, or that the establishments are perhaps, since the pandemic or whatever, not being as robust or zealous in their enforcement?
I think things are as they have always been in terms of how the bars are doing their checks. In the past, when officers would go in for the tavern safety inspections, they would do a walkthrough. They would, if there were any patrons who looked to them to be underage, they would check their IDs. Sometimes they wouldn't even do that. They would just walk through, check capacity, just, kind of get a feel for what was going on in the establishment and then walk out. And back in the day, I think at most I ever saw was maybe 10 or 12 underage references in a police report for a particular establishment. But now when they go in, I don't want to say they're shutting down the bar, but in essence they are, because they're asking for ID from pretty much everybody who's in the bar and then processing all of those in, 2 or 3 hours time span. So it's just a different way that they're going about doing the tavern safety inspections.
So bottom line, and obviously you've been our alcohol prosecutor for years. I don't want to date you, but anyway, I mean that as a term of endearment when I joke about that, Jen. But anyway, so you wouldn't say that this is a higher volume of reports than in the last year or two than you've seen at other times throughout your career as our prosecutor?
I think the number of tavern safety inspections is no greater than it ever was. I think just the way they are processing them is different the past couple of years.
In terms of the number of citations issued?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate all your information tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Are there any more questions from the committee? We can move on to report of the city clerk's office.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. I'll say that we're out of regular licenses. We only have reserve licenses available for all those who are looking for a Class B combination liquor and beer license. Other than that, I was thinking back to a request the committee had to invite a member of the Department of Revenue. I will say that Department of Revenue recently restructured, where now they have a division of alcoholic beverages. They also have a division that's for cigarette, tobacco, and electronic vape devices. I don't know the exact name of that one. But the longtime special agent who oversaw alcohol for the Department of Revenue has switched over from alcohol to this cigarette and tobacco and vape division. And so he's sort of partially filling in until they get that position filled for the special agent for the alcohol. So I haven't extended any invitations to the LRC until they fill that. And I don't know how soon that person might be able to just appear before the committee and be able to answer questions, or if Jason Lee, the previous special agent, would be able to attend with them to sort of have that and answer any questions that the committee has. So it is on my radar, but I'm waiting for the Department of Revenue to sort of get their feet under them before extending that invitation.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Verbeek? Alder Verveer.
Thank you. Jim, speaking of the new division of alcohol, I asked the city clerk this at our I don't know if you were watching, I hope you weren't, but our Finance Committee budget hearings the last 2 nights, when Mary Beth was before us, I asked her if she had any inside information about the timing, and I'm most curious what the fee will be for the new statewide operator license issued by DOR. Have you heard any intelligence? Mary Beth had not, and I was just wondering if you'd heard anything
No,
in terms of the timing of when the administrative rule would be promulgated, which I presume is how they would set the fee. And so.
Yeah, I don't know about the timing. I will say that they were at the annual municipal clerks conference in mid-August, late August, and they didn't tell us when it would come out. They didn't tell us the amount. I think if I recall, I think they estimated it would be more expensive than your average municipal license, but I don't know how that factors in for places that issue biannually like we do, or folks who or municipalities that issue every year. So I'm not quite sure. I don't have any information on that, unfortunately.
Is my memory correct that the statute would require that it be implemented New Year's Day?
Yes.
So they don't have that many more months to figure all this out?
No.
Yeah.
They have a history of just springing stuff on us at the very last possible moment, so I wouldn't.
Like vape, speaking of vape.
Yeah.
Yes, those new licenses.
Yeah. And apparently I found out that even though the application asks you to choose any of the combination cigarette, tobacco, or electronic vape devices, regardless of what you choose, you're allowed to do all of them, according to the Department of Revenue.
Oh, it's a flat $100 license?
Yeah. Well, I also asked, can we charge per? And they said, no, it's one fee. And regardless of what the application says, they're allowed to do any of those things. So if they just check tobacco, they could legally.
Oh, I was thinking it would be more revenue and it would be another $100.
I was hoping so too, but yeah.
But it definitely isn't.
No.
Oh, that's too
Yeah, I
bad.
asked that question.
So the statewide fee, the fee for the statewide license, City of Madison will still gain some revenue from that?
Attorney Amber has her hand up.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hi, Teddy, too. That's Jerry's dog, for those that don't know who's been joining us tonight.
Chair, I have some answers if I may.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to what the state might charge for their permit for operators, the word on the street, and obviously this doesn't, hold them to anything, is that their goal is not to take away revenue from municipalities and undercut the fee. And so we have heard, and it's hopefully going to happen, that they will set their fee higher than the highest municipal fee in the state. Whether or not that happens, that's just something that could happen and something that's being talked about. But it seems like, they don't plan to come in and say, their fee is going to be $10 and then everyone will get theirs there instead of at municipalities. It also sounds like Jim kind of alluded to, they don't have the capacity for that. They don't have the staffing. And then there was something else someone just talked about that I was going to weigh in on, and I've forgotten it now.
Well, I was joking earlier that you would log into Muni Court and give us the IA dates for some of Jen's prosecutions, but that was a joke.
I can if you really
no, that
want
was
me
a joke.
to, but
I just wanted to make sure you realized I was kidding.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, but if you have other questions, I mean, the League of Municipalities is, pretty on top of DAB and trying to keep apprised of what is going on there. So, as things come up, we'll hopefully be able to have more answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask Attorney McReynolds a question? Were there any, I'm thinking back a few months ago, at an appropriate time, we asked you to give us a update on all the changes to the statute, and then we had that, helpful Ledge Council memo, and there's other tools as well that are out there on the internet that is a good summary of the changes in the statute. Were there any others, Amber, that you thought that our committee should be aware of besides the fact that we might be seeing a lesser number of operator licenses come the new year, perhaps, but perhaps it sounds like that would not be the case. But were there any other modifications that you remember that are effective New Year's Day besides the statewide operator license?
I don't know off the top of my head, starting this New Year's, what other ones will go into effect at that time. There are some other parts of the statute that, might be relevant, but they haven't really come into play yet. And we're also still waiting for guidance and regulations from DAB. So yeah, I mean, if people need more information or another summary, I'm happy to look into that. But right now we're kind of doing a wait and see for some things until we get more clarification from them.
Thank you. And DAB is the acronym for the newly minted Division of Alcohol Beverages at the Department of Revenue, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Alder Knox?
I guess I was just wondering, once these state licenses.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Very quiet.
Oh, but you can hear me, you just can't hear me.
It's very quiet.
Barely. It's like you're whispering, Izzy.
No, I'm not whispering. Can you hear me? Hello? No?
I can just barely hear
Barely.
you. Maybe if you try.
And it's like you're whispering to us.
Can the people online hear him?
It's also fairly quiet.
Okay, this should
Is
help.
this better? Is
Yes,
this better?
perfect.
Okay. I was just kind of curious about, once they start issuing these state licenses, does that supersede the municipalities' authorities in a lot of ways to, we have all our policies and things like that. If they have a state licenses, would we be able to enforce our local municipal ordinances? Can you guys hear me?
We can.
can't hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Attorney McReynolds is volunteering to answer.
Sure. Yeah, so specifically about the operator's licenses, Alder Knox, the state permit would, allow someone to apply once to the state and be able to work anywhere in Wisconsin. So it might be more applicable for people who are, for example, a general manager of several different locations of a chain or something. Or it might apply to someone who works in several different municipalities. But it seems that most people will probably still just get the municipal license. At least that's what the department thinks at this time. It's going to be faster for people to be able to get a license through the city than through the state. The state does still run a background check, and they have a list of violations that they look at. I think it's similar to what we look at. So I don't think we will notice much change, but that is to be determined, I guess.
Okay.
And I'll say that much of our Chapter 36 is a mirror of the statutes for 125. So I don't think a lot of things related to what operators do and what operators can do, I think are going to be impacted like this at the municipal level, because it's the same as what it's at the state. At our meeting, at our clerk conference, they did talk about having like a public database that anyone, including our law enforcement, could look up to make sure that somebody has one of these state permits. If they're doing bar checks and making sure that there's a licensed operator on site, that this is actually a legitimate permit that they'd be displaying from the state.
Does the state feel like they'll be able to do the enforcement for their licenses? I'm just curious about that, because you would think that would be some additional backlog, or you don't know?
I don't think we can
Yeah.
answer that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know the
Okay.
state does visit places, retail locations every now and then, and does sort of some policing of that, not looking at every single place, but I know there's every month when they have their newsletter, they always talk about some sort of violation they found in a check and things like that. I know they're looking for a lot of things that we're probably not looking for, like, are they buying from the appropriate places? Are they not mirroring bottles or things like that? So they are doing some enforcement, but not like a grand enforcement of all of our establishments.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions or from the committee? Any more comments?
Alder Knox is here.
Alder Knox, do you have anything else, or is your hand still up, or is it up again? Okay. If there's nothing else on our agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Carter, seconded by Alder Miadzi. We are adjourned. Without objection, we're adjourned. Okay.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night.
It's plenty.